Hello there. In this video we will try to solve a simple problem in a very complex way. Think about a chair. The question is, what is it? Now, each of you thought of a different chair, even though we agree that they are all actually chairs. Let me help you. Here are some options. Which one is a chair? If you chose the first, you're wrong, but you would also have been wrong had you chosen the second or the third. The reason is, this is a video and does not contain a real chair. Or does it? Throughout the course of history, many different thinkers have tried to investigate the status of reality by staring for hours at completely common things and asking themselves, what the hell is that? You can imagine that they didn't make many friends that way. Anyway, in the second part of the 20th century, some of these special kids like Claude Lévi-Strauss, Jacques Lacan, Michel Foucault and Roland Barthes invented the idea of structuralism. One of them, Gilles Deleuze, was so tired of staring at chairs that eventually he tried to fix the problem once and for all. To this aim, he described the 7 principles of structuralism. The first principle is the creation of a new domain, the domain of the symbolic. Indeed, we are used to distinguishing between the real and the imaginary, between reality and ideas, between what exists independently and what we know about it. All our thoughts maintain a dialectical play between these two notions. The complexity of this relationship is clear in artistic movements such as Romanticism, Symbolism and Surrealism. They all aim at expressing the transcendent point where the real and the imaginary interpenetrate and unite. It is neither the realm of reality nor of the imaginary. The domain of the symbolic is the immense number of relationships between these two. I'm sure you're all familiar with this good old fellow, Plato, and his interest in shadow plays. In his myth of the cave, he focused on the opposition between reality and the imaginary. Where is the symbolic then? The symbolic is where the humans are. They are the ones between reality and the imaginary, the ones who actually connect and make sense of them both. If something is real, it belongs to reality, and if something is imaginary, it belongs to imagination. So what's left? What's in the space in between? There are structures composed of positions and relations. The second principle is in fact called local or positional. Like in a game of chess, on the one side we have the actual position of the pieces, reality, on the other all the possible alternatives, imaginary, and in between we have the system of rules and positions which make the game possible. Without the latter, chess would just be a nice ornament for old houses. What makes of chess a game is neither the physical existence of variously shaped pieces of wood, nor the idea of a battle involving kings, queens and self-moving towers, but a combination of the two. This combination is a structure of interrelated positions, of roles which constantly redefine each other on the chessboard, creating each time different possible scenarios. The third principle is the idea of difference. Humans, even before perceiving what they call reality, are sensitive to differences, to changes, to discrepancies. To interact with the world effectively, in other words to survive, we create stable patterns, like our route to work, dressing standards and basic human communications. Everything which interferes with these patterns, everything which is different, attracts our attention. A difference implies the existence of at least 3 elements, a pattern, a discrepancy and the border between them. Of course, while white and black are well-defined colours, their mutual definition relies on something which at first sight seems difficult to grasp, the border between them. The border is their relation, what separates the black from the white and vice versa. In other words, what makes them what they are in relation to each other. It might sound strange, but our social life is full of these elements. For example, husband-wife, sister-brother, perpetrator-victim, predator-prey, good-bad. This relation of difference, this process of reciprocal determination, is at the heart of structuralism, and of course can be expanded upon. So, now the question is, what is the status of these structures? As we've seen, they're neither real nor imaginary, but they stay in between and allow these two domains to interact. In the same way, marriage relations are what produce husbands and wives. Could structural relations be what actually produce realities and imaginaries? In other words, could reality and imagination be just products of most human societies? To define this particular status, Deleuze said that structures are real without being actual, ideal without being abstract. But what does that mean? Let's consider, for example, money. It has no value in itself. It is merely pieces of paper, but it incarnates a whole system of economic relations, and it is only because of the economic structure that it has value. Just think of the Wall Street crash in 1929. Another example are gods. Through their physical appearance and their stories, they incarnate parts of the society, with their reciprocal differences and tensions. The emergence of new deities, like Dionysus for example, usually indicates a change in the society. The two structures reflect each other. Ut in caelum, sic in terram. The fifth principle refers to the possibility of different structures, of different systems of differences, to interact, overlap, contain and reflect each other. Think of famous soap operas. They're all different, but they also follow similar plots. We could say the same for Greek and Roman deities, money-based economic systems, or social traditions on marriage. They're all different, but they have something in common, something which allows you to understand that they are similar objects, and that's the structure. To go back to the example of the chair, the problem is not that we don't know what a chair is, but that we do actually know what a chair is. After all, we use chairs every day. The problem is that we're looking for the real chair. But does a real chair actually exist? Confused? Let me explain. The three examples I've presented here, the drawing of a chair, the picture of a chair, and the dictionary definition of a chair, as well as all the chairs you and anybody else can imagine, are different expressions of a single structure that we linguistically call chair. Its structural existence is so powerful that we are able to use other objects as chairs. In other words, we are able to recognize in those other objects their potential chairness. If, in the unlikely event that we happen to forget the structure of a chair, not even a chair would be a chair anymore. The sixth principle is more intuitive and defines the driving force of structures, what allows them to be dynamic and to constantly evolve. A static structure, a structure in which all positions are stably occupied, is called a code. The traffic code is a good example. Each single sign has one and only one meaning which does not influence the others. A code is an institutionally stabilized structure. Conversely, what makes structures dynamic is the presence of empty positions. These empty positions allow the different elements to move in the structure and engage different relations. Think about chess, the Rubik Cube, or even better, this old game. Think about this. If all the positions were filled, no change would be possible. The necessity of an empty position which keeps relocating is clear also in narratives. Think about the $2 million of No Country for Old Men. It is its circulation which drives the story, and honestly, what about the Game of Thrones? Finally, the subject and its agency come into play. Indeed, the empty square is not completely empty. Its void is filled with possibilities. All these possibilities do not only depend on the structure, but also on the possibility of changing it, of moving to a different one, of defining the whole system. But what does this? The human subject. Through the empty positions, humans interact with the structure and constantly reorganize it. For this reason, subjects are essentially intersubjective. That is, they constantly reshape their universe of relations which, in turn, constantly redefine them. As a general rule, the real, the imaginary, and their relations are always engendered secondarily by the functioning of structures, and this functioning is the result of millions and millions of little humans playing with them. This video, after all, is just another of these little games. The idea of the disappearance of reality, after all the effort we put into tying it all together, might seem scary. If you go around saying that maybe both imagination and reality are human concepts generated by specific cultural patterns, probably more than one of your friends will start waving a chair in front of your eyes shouting, "What's this then?" Don't panic. There's nothing nihilistic in all of this. Actually, quite the opposite. Playing with the structures, creating new universes is one of our human superpowers. Just use it. As Deleuze said, no book or video against anything has any importance. All that counts are books and videos for something, and to know how to produce them.